So should have some attendees attending and have been let in as well. So welcome. Good morning, evening, night, wherever you are from the world. This is going to be an international session, so whatever works. Welcome to the Social Value Matters 2020. My name is Charlotte, and I will be your MC and tech support for this session. Social Value Matters 2020 has been organized by Social Value Canada and Social Value International, and it is part of our annual conference series. Yes, we know last year we announced that we'll be hosting this in Toronto in Canada, very exotic. However, like everything else in 2020, that just didn't go to the plan. So we have gone on to this virtual world that we hope you will enjoy as well. And we got more than that have made it more diverse events, and we got more than 100 speakers from 30 different countries around the world. So Social Value International is the global network for social value and impact measurement and management. So over the 6 months, we've learned why social value is so important, and we're thrilled to have you involved in this event as well. This session that you're attending is one of our incredible practitioners conversations, and we do hope you enjoy. But before I hand over to our fantastic speakers, Federico, Margarita, and Tommaso, I'll just like to let you know some housekeeping. And number one, this session is being recorded, and a recording will be available for replay within a few hours for those of you who purchased a full access ticket. Secondly, please use the chat box to introduce yourself and to ask questions to our speakers. And I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, put them in there, and I'll make sure that the speakers get to know them as well. But that's enough for me. Let me hand over to Federico, who will start off this session. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, and it's really a pleasure to be here and to introduce this amazing session with some friends. This session is about an experience we had as Social Value Italia. Social Value Italia was founded in 2015, so we have 5 years of working here in Italy to promote the culture of social value and social assessment. And this is, for me, one of the most relevant activities we realize in these 5 years. And this journey started 4 years ago when we organized a meeting in Milan. And this meeting has was focused on collecting feedbacks from different stakeholders to understand barriers in implementing impact evaluation. And one of the sessions of this conference was dedicated to international NGOs. So we had several feedbacks about the barriers that NGOs face in implementing impact evaluation. And at this session attend people from Link 2007. Link 2007 is a network of Italian NGOs with really very relevant NGOs. And they after the meeting, they talked to me that they would like to start a process in order to fill these gaps and face these barriers. And we start working together and talking together. We talk a lot in order to understand which could be the best way to fill this gap. And we decide to design guidelines together. And we work 1 year together in order to co-create these guidelines. As Social Value Italia, we provide a small group of researchers, and Link 2007 also provide people working in different organizations. So we had a multi-stakeholder staff working on these guidelines. And we started these guidelines doing benchmarking about the different practices about impact assessment and impact evaluation at international levels. So we did this benchmark of different approach, which were the most common approaches for impact evaluation, which were the barriers, and after this amazing work of benchmarking, we started to design together the guidelines, and we discussed a lot about how to design these guidelines. If we had to choose a specific framework, or if we prefer to work more on process. As Social Value Italia is part of Social Value International, our idea was not to work on a specific framework, but we prefer to work more on a process approach. And so we try to define different guidelines with a common process, and this framework was presented at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who is in charge of international cooperation here in Italy. We organized a very good session with all relevant stakeholders, with policymakers, with people involved in international cooperation at the ministry 3 years ago, because we would like to influence the policy through the presentation of this guide. And I think that one of and we achieved these goals of influencing the policy, because after the presentation of the guide, the ministry established a committee for impact evaluation. So this is one of the most relevant achievements we had after the presentation of the guide. But after presenting the guide, we think what we could do in order to validate the guidelines. And we start another brainstorming together in order to what we could do, what is the best way to validate the guidelines, how we can learn from these guidelines. And so we decide to use the guidelines in different programs or projects who were implemented or were start in that period. And we decide to use the guidelines in several fields. And so the organization, they start implementing the program, and at the same time, they start to implement the evaluation framework we designed together. So after implementing the guidelines, we have another brainstorming in order to understand how we could systematize the lesson learned from the different evaluation, and we decide to realize a second guide, and we are just in this activity now. We are working on this second guide, and the idea is to realize a meta evaluation of the different evaluation in order to understand if the guidelines run, and which are the barriers that the organization face implementing the guidelines, which are the relation between the organization and the external evaluator. And so our idea is to realize this guide, and also to provide to the NGOs a very practical guide and tips about how to implement the process and the evaluation framework in order to avoid barriers and to fill gaps. So this is basically what we did together, and is something ongoing, and is really amazing, and for me was an amazing opportunity for working with amazing organization as the organization of Link 2007. So, and I think also was an opportunity for Link 2007 to improve his knowledge about impact evaluation, to fill some gaps, to improve the quality of evaluation, to understand more how to dialogue with the external evaluator. So I don't want to use more time, because it is best is the best is listening the experience on the ground in the field. And I would like to introduce Margherita, who is a part of this process, and she was a very important part of the process we had, because she was part of the staff, the multi-stakeholder staff. And so she has an important role in the first draft of the guidelines, and also in the experimentation of the guidelines. So Margherita, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Federico. Nice to be here with you and to share this consideration and also our path that we developed together. For me, it was an amazing experience, honestly, because we had the opportunity really to share different point of view and to create knowledge, create values for different actors. And so this experience was really interesting, and I think that realized and achieved a good result. From the side of Link 2007, from where the idea to keep in contact, to enter in contact with social value, this idea matured because Link 2007, as Federico said, is a network of NGOs, and among the largest NGO that we have in Italy. And from some years, we have been starting one process of improving our accountability. So this idea to be much more accountable and take the responsibility of accountability, also signing a chart of for the accountability commitment, was the base on which the process of the evaluation was rooted. In fact, in the first part of the accountability chart and activities, we were focused mostly on the aspect relating to the financial aspect, to the administrative aspect, to be transparent regarding the money. I mean, how we use the money and how we manage projects. But also because there is a big debate worldwide on the reliability of the third sector partners and actors. But from our side, this was quite a not fruitful dialogue if it's not accompanied by the capacity to demonstrate the value of what we do. Because our aim is not to manage money well. Okay, this is something that should be accompanying our action, but our main the core of our activities, our mission is to try to eradicate the poverty, is to try to create a better sustainable world. And what we really want to demonstrate is that we and how and to which extent we achieve this result. For this purpose, the only and powerful tool that we have is the impact evaluation. And we were the only network, the first network that opened in Italy that opened this path to take in consideration the aspect of evaluation, impact evaluation. After one process started, in fact, we have a new law on third sector that incorporated the idea of creating a social report where the evaluation of the impact of each actor of the third sector had to be explained very well. So then our path was, informing that process, and that was incorporated in a law in Italy. But on the other side, more speaking more internally, from the internal point of view, another important and relevant aspect needs that push us to start this process of the evaluation was that we would like to also understand and what we really achieve in order to strengthen the learning aspect, the internal learning aspect. So then, and this made in a network had much more value, because of course we could not only learn inside our organization, but also share some learning aspect with the other organization. What we discover during the process was that the process faces some aspect that should be solved and find a solution. First of all, we had different pattern, different context, because, for example, the international cooperation worked in emergency context as well as developing context. So then situation background are really, really different. And sometimes what you can do in a developing context you cannot do in an emergency context. Another aspect that was challenging in creating the guideline was the aspect related to the different sector of activities. For example, working in agriculture is really different than working for human rights and advocacy initiatives. So then we need different approaches, different tools, and so then it was quite challenging to find a framework useful for all of these kind of activities, as well as working in emergency, for example, in giving quick support to refugees, for example. So then we really, inside our organization, some organizations were some partner, some NGOs of the link 2007 were scared that we were creating one tool, fixed tool and rigid tool that they couldn't apply. But the solution that we found, it was the one that Federico mentioned, namely to be focused on the process, and also to start from some tools that our sector are used to put in place. First of all, the logical framework methodology. So it is something that we normally use, and it's also a tool that is in the relations with our donors. So then we started our process linking in the cycle of the project different steps of the evaluation, starting since the beginning, because that was the key to start a good evaluation. Design the evaluation system together with the monitoring. We are much more oriented in design the monitoring, but those monitoring tools, the majority of time, do not incorporate the aspect of evaluation of outcomes. The other keyword was outcomes, because when we talk about impact, we can evaluate long-term impact, but to be in the frame of the length of the project, also because the evaluation for us is requested by the donor, we were wondering if is this long-term evaluation important or useful in the relation with donors. Somehow we said not properly, because the time frame where they assess our performance is in the length of the project, 6 months later, the length of the project. So then what we decided then to be focused on, it was mostly on the outcomes, and keep the long-term impact to a further step of our process. So then this was important to keep on board different organization from our side, because they evaluated useful for our activities. And the last thing that I want for this moment to share with you is that the relations with the donors. Federico mentioned that the document was shared in a section with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and it was, but for us, it was, this had a double aims. On one hand, to share with them tools that are relevant, that are important from our point of view to learn, and to learn each other between the NGOs and the donor as a team, as a partnership, and to really go to catch the improvement or the failure that our project produced. And but on the other side, we have to say that not always the donors, in our cases, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, are proficient enough, if I can say, to know all the difficulties that our sector faced, and also how to manage them in a rigorous aspect of the evaluation. So then sometimes they propose tools that or are not easy or feasible to be applied, or some other times they leave completely freedom to whatever, and there are many discrepancies against the different actors. What we try to do is that, okay, the NGOs can propose a system to which we can adhere and to which we can be committed to, so that you can have a tool to make more or less an appraisal of the result of the NGOs on the same base. It is not a competition among NGOs, but it is a way to create a culture of the evaluation. The very last thing is that for us, having in order to achieve all these objectives, we were wondering how to do. Just leave to an external expert evaluator team these this path and this process, or be directly involved. Or the third case is it would that we discussed it was also to do everything internally, and decide by ourselves and create an evaluation guide by ourselves. The international cooperation is a word that I could say inside the third world, third sector is quite professional. So then we add some expertise, but in our idea, the aspect to put together the external and internal expert was the best solution, because can put together the capacity to know exactly what is going on in the project, because you have a long experience in international cooperation in some sector, in some countries, and you can bring your knowledge. And that sometimes not sometimes, always you have to create with a long-term relation with the country that an external evaluator is not able to create, because is a much more spot evaluation. But on the other side, we need to be objectify, to be objective in our evaluation, because and also having a different point of view also for our approach and our interest to learn, to improve our project. And this external view can be given only from our side, from the external evaluator. And also the external evaluator, being well specialized on the topic, had the opportunity to bring the more useful tool for your specific case. So then bring innovation to the process, or propose some solution that we don't know, also because we are much more concentrated on our cases, on the cases that we faced till that moment. So then from our side, it was a process very, very relevant and very, very important. So other aspect on the implementation I can add later, and I think that it's very important that just to open the box and to giving the floor to Tommaso to start to understand how worked an evaluation according to the guidelines, according to their experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Margherita. My name is Tommaso Cassiani. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm M&E coordinator for COSV, and COSV is an Italian NGO founded in 1968, which is also a member of Link 2007. Therefore, I thank both Link 2007 and Social Value Italy for the invitation to have us here. I have a little presentation to introduce let me check if it works, the share screen, to introduce our points as COSV and to complement what Federico and Margherita already illustrated. So let me know if is working in this very moment. Is it? Can you see me? Okay.
Yes, it's working.
Perfect. So let me have a presentation up. Can you see it? Okay, perfect. So, as said, COSV, it's an Italian NGO which is working worldwide in currently 4 continents. We're working on several issues, but we have some trait d'union, some features that we try to apply in all our projects in the different contexts that we are working in. Some of these features, and I would say the most important ones, are to favor a community approach, therefore integrating our both planning and project implementation with a strong participation of beneficiaries, but not only, all kind of stakeholders, including public administrations and the private sector when possible. In fact, indeed, we have an approach which is also trying to support social entrepreneurship and working models between private and private sector and not-for-profit sector. Another feature is that we try to promote social cohesion, if we want to call it like multiculturalism and dialogue among the parts. We try to integrate and to involve in our projects and in the project planning, as well as, and here's the point of interest for this conversation, in the final or midterm evaluation of the activities we implement. As member of Link 2007, we have received and participated to the creation of the guidelines and the impact evaluation dossier. As Margherita just stated, the guidelines are thought and they have been identified to cover a wide range of topics, as well as to cover several fields of interest the organizations, members of Link 2007 are working with. Therefore, what we did was, or we tried to, was to apply some of these guidelines to a coherent system of monitoring and evaluation of our program, focusing this way on the outcomes and not only on the standard monitoring of project evaluations in our projects. So I'm here now to quickly present what kind of guidelines we have focused on. We try to absorb as many guidelines as possible, but we focus on a few of them in particular, and how these guidelines have been translated and transformed into some practical modification of the organizational, not only the organization breakdown, but also the organizational structure. So the first thing we did was to adopt one very important guideline I consider, which is to set a clear and well-defined analysis framework. Meaning that, of course, you can, as we said before, you can focus on several areas and find ways to evaluate impact of different kind of activities and of interventions your organization have worldwide or in different contexts. But to have a coherent impact evaluation which preserves a comprehensive system of vertical logic in which, of course, outputs brings to outcomes and therefore could be analyzed in a meaningful way, leading to strong findings. At the end, you have to first define an analytical framework. And given that COSV was and is rather strong in the MENA area, in particular in the Middle East, we decided to focus our intervention, our let's say, our new approach towards monitoring and evaluation following the guidelines of the dossier on a specific sector project within the predefined area of MENA. And we decided also to do it within a clear time frame. So when I arrived at COS, it was early 2017, and we received the guidelines, correct me if I'm wrong, by the end of the year, published of the year. So since 2018 to the end of this year, 2020, we decided to cover 3 years and to implement what I'm going now to describe within this time frame in the specific area of the MENA region, which means in to the projects we are implementing in the MENA region. The second step has been to link the evaluation methodologies to a long-term regional strategy of intervention. So we decided to start assessing how specific project outputs contributed to specific outcomes which are of interest for our evaluation, for our impact evaluation. And to do so, first of all, we had to identify what was the strategy of COSV in the regional strategy of COSV for the 3 years to come. Of course, COSV already had a regional strategy, but we tried to adapt it to a 3 years time frame, so this 3 years box, and therefore we defined what, which here is like very simplified, but we defined what we wanted to be the impact COSV should contribute to in the region within this time frame, and through which kind of clusters of activity, which we call pillars. And we defined it as, so the impact, we defined it as contributing to more inclusive and cohesive local societies in the MENA region. And in terms of how did we decide to contribute, we identified 2 pillars, social cohesion and inclusive economic development, which of course are not mutually exclusive. The 2 pillars, they merge many times in many projects, but we had to identify the first structure which could categorize or start categorizing how all our projects were possible to be divided in order to create a framework of observation. So the framework we needed to set up specific tools and procedures, so to identify what were the outputs of specific projects in specific sectors, and then next, how these outputs were contributing or not, because this is a very important point. Sometimes it's equally important to identify our achievement as well as Margherita said, as our failures. The third guidelines we decided to follow, or we tried to follow, was to integrate a short-term and several short-term and several long-term analytical tools and procedures. How we set up vertical connection, trying to guarantee causal inference at let's say monitorable level between the analytical frameworks of the program and the analytical frameworks of the projects. So what we did was at project level, we didn't let's say reinvented the wheel. Basically, we used the log frame approach, but we adapted when possible, and of course supported by the donors. We adapted the log frames, and we eventually added project indicators, even when the projects were ongoing, to the general framework so the program framework we were structuring at the time. At program level, we based instead a set of programs indicator to a theory of change based analysis, or better said, to a theory of change approach. So what we did was to transform the strategy, the regional strategy, into a coherent theory of change, and to apply program indicators to the theory of change, or maybe to extract from the theory change the program indicators. Done that, once we did that, we decided then to harmonize where possible the project log prints, which has been designed way before, to the program framework, so to try to guarantee some sort of causal inference, so some sort of vertical logic. Another guideline we still consider, and we considered important at the time, was to set up processes and procedures aimed to guarantee result-based analysis. And this result-based analysis had to be a continuous loop. So what we did is to set up an appointed M&E unit, which at the beginning was mostly me, but then it has been enlarged and it covers several areas. And currently we're trying to apply the same process to other regional offices, starting from the East Africa one. But in the Middle East, from the end of 2017, we had this M&E unit, which identified and trained throughout the time in these last 3 years, M&E professional, and set up internal processes and procedure. Currently, the M&E unit, it's managed by the M&E coordinator, so me, and it's responding directly to the general director. What I have, it's a number of M&E country officers in the area we work, which are in direct contact with field monitors. So there is a chain, a connection chain, which is also communication and a reporting chain between field monitors directly to the M&E country officers, the M&E coordinator, and the general director. Oversimplifying, I can say that the M&E coordinator is mostly analyzing and assessing the program M&E framework, while the M&E country officers are more focusing on at the project level. Another rather important guidelines we follow was to counter-check internal and external evaluation findings. So we try to harmonize methodologies and the referral program framework for both internal and external evaluation. So to try to, let's say, speak the same language and also refer to the same indicators when we have external evaluation. And finally, we identified one of the very important guideline was to identify lesson learned and good practices at program level. And so what we did, we set up a system which is able to produce a regular feed of M&E documents and dossier, trying to capitalize on the reported analysis. So aside from the monthly M&E internal report that we have from each and every project, we work on project-specific M&E reports, so on cluster activities. Let's say we have trainings on specific theme, or I don't know, a sub-granting system on other specific topics, and we try to capitalize producing M&E reports on those two. And then we have activity cluster themes dossier, which are basically fed by the project-specific M&E reports. And we are finalizing in this coming month and a half, the COSMINA 3 years impact evaluation, which is actually capitalizing on all the contributes that the previous documents I've mentioned provided us with. So those were the main good practices that we tried to use as leads, so to structure the program M&E framework COSV as currently in place. I have some findings that are interesting to discuss and inputs, but I will first leave the stage to Federico and Margherita again.
Margherita, you also are in the middle of the experimentation of the guidelines. If you would like to share some thoughts about what you are doing and which are the main findings of this experimentation.
Thank you very much, Federico. Yes, it is. We have started a process for implementation of the guide, and selecting one experience that we have in the Southeast Asia. And we selected this because of the complexity, if we can say, and also because the moment of the momentum of the project was perfect to create this experience, to give the possibility of apply this guide, because it was we had one project that is a part of a program, and is the topic is regarding the migration and the international migration between Cambodia and Thailand, and how the migrants are exploited, and how the unsafe migration is built, and which are the consequences. So then our project want to work and to reduce the exploitation of migrants. We do not want to stop the migration, but we definitely want to stop the unsafe migration. The migration is very important in that country because of remittances, but is also very challenging because it provokes a lot of damages in terms of social cohesion, but also to the single person that face an exploitation, and in general to the country that then has to overcome with such problems. Is our approach to these issues is that working at a double level on the field, working with the self-help groups among migrants, potential migrants, returnees, and left behind people. And in order to create a tool that where they can help themselves, and they can do immediately, not waiting for the time and sometimes the long time of public intervention. On the other side, but we acknowledge that it's impossible to change the main structure of the issue if we do not work with the institutions at the very high level, at a very high level, and with but also with the implementing offices of such institutions, the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Social Affairs, and their offices at local level. And on the other side, also in the dialogue between the sending as Cambodia is country and receiving as Thailand is country. So in this scenario that make together different levels, what we would like really to understand if is the project can produce what we want to really create on one side, and on the other side what we really want to what the aspect that are more immaterial aspect of advocacy, or what are result of advocacy activities. So then we, together with the social value, we created a team, and in this team of evaluators, internal, external, and from the internal side, I was leading accompanying the external evaluator. And we decided, first of all, to experiment the design of the creation of an evaluation design. So then that was what was really needed, because we were perfectly understanding that sending an external evaluation at the very end of the project, they couldn't get a lot of information because of the mobility of migration. So then also the high immateriality of the advocacy. So then we really need to follow the result created step by step. So together we designed this design for the evaluation, and very shortly what I have to say. First of all, the aspect of having a mixed team was important, also because we, for example, for our side, for internal, we gave to the external evaluator some key of possibility to read the contest, and also to enlarge the scope of the question, because we know that sometimes to some people they could ask more than what they were thinking to ask, and but in some other cases we said be careful, because here there is a political issues inside. So then find out the way to ask what you want to say to ask, but understanding that directly they never tell you how the situation is really is. So then provide this kind of understanding. The other aspect was that I want to mention, it was that was created a theory of change of the project. This was very in the design, and this was very useful for all the partners to understand which are the logic that is underpinning the project. Even they are implementing the project, but sometimes they are focused on their part and they are missing all the rest. And but on the other side, after that the partner had this tool, they wanted from the evaluator to solve some aspects that were more linked to the strategic aspect, without understanding the role of the evaluator from the role of the program management team. So then our support was to make them understanding these different roles. And sometimes it means also make a translation of what the external evaluator says, because sometimes also the words or the concept of the evaluator are not perfectly understood by our staff and the staff of our partners. So then many times having a mixed teams was useful, because we said maybe we have to explain better to make them understanding. And to close this section, because of time constraint, what I would like to say is that from this experience, we understood that is very important, and our staff required the intervention of an evaluator. And on the other side is need to build the culture of evaluation, to understand what the evaluation is and which are the limits or the relevant aspect that the evaluation can give us. The other aspect is that the evaluation just on spot on one project doesn't make sense, because we need to implement, to set up a system of evaluation into the organization. And as Tommaso said, also in our organization, after this experience and the experience of creating the guide, we decide, thanks really to this, to set up a system of evaluation in the organization. We included in the unit of policy, advocacy, and strategic partnership, because we want to inform the knowledge that then we use internally, externally, with the result of evaluation. And on the other side, to make this evaluation team external to the team that implement the project, to create separation duty separation. So I think that is enough for the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margherita, for your point. And Tommaso, lesson learned by this experience you described. The microphone is off, please. Turn on the microphone.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, sorry, I had some issues in unmuting while on the screen share. Okay, so basically some of the issues are very similar to the one, and inputs also are very similar to the one that Margherita has reported. One of them was the limits of causal inference between project monitoring and program evaluation. Of course, an interacting system, as I wrote, in which project outcomes are considered as inputs within the program theory of change, was our response, was our solution. There are limits that are, of course, connected to a straight direct causal inference, but we try to overcome them using counter checks and let's say weight balance with other tools and procedures that we're using to monitor and evaluate our both projects and program. Another interesting issue was the lack of clear recognition of specifically trained M&E professional figures among the third sector organization and donor. As said, I think the very important contribute to this dossier is providing to the sector is to push for recognition, both for third sector organizations and more specifically for donors, of the specificity of the M&E professionals, and in terms of tools, in terms of theory, in terms of background, in terms of important and clear definitions of the sector and of the concepts that we're working with. So we put a stronger focus on internal M&E training and we try to adopt key concept definition based on the existing literature. Another issue we faced was the limit of perception-based assessment in a region which I would not say it's just the MENA, but also like the Northern Mediterranean, all the Mediterranean area, where there are strong perception bias, meaning that to assess some sort of effects on our projects generate in the area of intervention, we try to counter-check, to provide and to start and to set up counter-check tools and means of verification which are not relying only on perceptive indicators. So yes to perceptive indicators, but never only perceptive indicators. And finally, there are sometimes, I totally agree with Margherita on the importance of equal interaction, or at least interaction between external and internal M&E teams, but there are sometimes methodological discrepancies between both, and so it's very important to harmonize the methodological framework with the pre-designed analytical framework, maybe used internally, and to share it with external evaluators so that the evaluation it's let's say working on the same ground, and with a shared definition and a clear baseline, so that there's not what scholars call the romanticization of the external evaluation from people coming from out of the context, and maybe the cultural context has some sort of, or produces some sort of bias in the evaluator, and I think like those are four of many others inputs and issues we've found, but those are, let's say, our contribution to foster further debate, which hopefully we can elaborate in the second edition, so which is the incoming edition of the impact evaluation dossier of Link 2007. Thanks, that's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Tommaso and Margherita, for sharing this experience, and thank you for to Social Value International and Social Value Canada for hosting this amazing event on impact assessment, and thank you, Charlotte, for technical system, and see you soon. Bye bye. Have a nice day.
And for Social Value International as well, thank you for some incredible speakers and a very insightful session. We hope you enjoyed this as much as we did, or that I did. This session has been recorded, and the recording will be available for replay for those of you who have bought the tickets for that. And the next session we got up in this conference is the local government leadership's voluntary charitable sector, social enterprise agility plus corporate power equals better local outcomes. And that starts in 0 minutes. So we hope to see you there as well. But thank you very much to the speakers. Fantastic sessions. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.